our stubborn selves will cause it all. I hear the engine start to stop. Oh, but at least we'll all feel right. At least we'll go out standing tall.
Hey everybody, welcome to Frostflower. I'm your host, TJ Freeze. Today we're going to talk about cannabinoids, a little science for you. So, what is a cannabinoid? Cannabinoid is a chemical produced either by the human body or by a cannabis plant that interacts with cannabinoid receptors in your body. So there are endogenous cannabinoids, and those are the ones that your body produces. And there are phytocannabinoids, and those are the ones produced by the cannabis plant. There are over 113 known cannabinoids present in cannabis plant. But most of the knowledge that they have is about the two main ones that we'll be talking about very soon. So this is how the cannabinoids interact with those cannabinoid receptors. So there are two kinds of cannabinoid receptors. There's the CB1 receptor and CB2 receptor. So the cannabinoids, when they're in your body, they interact with the receptors in your cells and produce different effects, which we'll talk about. The CB1 receptors are found mainly in your brain and in your nervous system, while the CB2 receptors are found mainly in the immune system. So two main cannabinoids that you're probably aware of, that you've probably heard of, are THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, or CBD, or cannabidiol. THC is definitely the main one. Historically, growers have tried to produce as high a THC content as possible in their flowers, just due to the fact that that's what produces the psychoactive effects, and that's what the buyer generally wants if you're using it for recreational purposes. CBD has been around forever, but has really been popularized in the last couple decades. It is non-psychoactive, so it doesn't get you high as THC does, but it has a lot of other effects in the body that people have been wanting, especially for like cosmetic and medical applications. So the THC, how it binds with those cannabinoid receptors, it actually kind of fits right into the cannabinoid receptor, so it's kind of like a full connection. Whereas CBD doesn't make that full connection with the cannabinoid receptor, but it does interact in certain ways that produce effects on your body. So kind of what happens when that cannabinoid enters the cannabinoid receptor, it sends a signal into the cell, and that tells the cell to make does something. So one of those things that it does will be making dopamine or serotonin, things like that, that is what gets you high in the end. So the benefits and side effects of these two cannabinoids, THC versus CBD, are pretty big. The THC is psychoactive, as I said before. It's a relaxant. It's an appetite stimulant. It causes drowsiness, causes euphoria, which is the main reason that I think people use it for recreational purposes, but it also can cause paranoia and anxiety in certain cases. CBD, on the other hand, is non-psychoactive, doesn't tend to cause paranoia or anxiety. It's a neuroprotective. It's also an anticonvulsant. So because cannabis has been a Schedule I drug, there hasn't been a lot of testing that's been done on it. It just hasn't been allowed by the government. So, but one of the things that we know for sure based on scientific research is that CBD can help people with certain kinds of epilepsy deal with seizures. So that's one of the most pronounced and well-studied effects of CBD. But there's sure to be more to come, especially once the federal government takes cannabis off of the federally scheduled substances list. So THC, this one, the main THC, regular THC that you know and love, that is Delta 9 THC. But you've probably heard of this other thing called Delta 8 THC. So we're going to talk about what is Delta 8. Delta 8 is a naturally found cannabinoid. The structure is almost identical to Delta 9 THC, I'll call that normal THC from here on out, because it's the THC you're familiar with. The THC, when they list the THC percentage on packaging, that's what they're talking about. It's the Delta 9. There is a double bond on one of the peptides that is just in a very slightly different place in Delta 8, and that's only structural difference. But it does have different effects. Delta 8 is found in very limited quantities inside the cannabis plant, even though it is natural. Most of the Delta 8 products that you've seen at the gas station are made using a extraction process using CBD. The extraction process involves chemical solvents or organic solvents and acids and things like that. I don't know. I've never done it before. I don't know the exact science behind it. But I do get a little bit sketched out anytime there are extractions involved that in unregulated products, just because you don't really know what's in them. So everybody I've talked to that has used the Delta 8 products has good things to say. I honestly think it's probably just fine, but I'd prefer Delta 9 anytime there's an opportunity. So I'm very glad that is becoming a legal option in Minnesota. So one thing I do not approve of or suggest or recommend is synthetic cannabinoids. So you may have heard of things like Spice or K2, sold in like head shops and whatnot. So these are made in a lab. They're not naturally occurring chemicals that you're finding in cannabis. They essentially take these solutions and they spray them on CBD buds, and then what you're buying is like a CBD bud. Or even worse, a lot of times they'll use just like some random vegetable matter and they'll spray it on that, and then that's what you smoke. Yeah, I've never tried these. I don't recommend it. So THC and CBD, it's called an agonistic relationship with the CB receptors, whereas these synthetic cannabinoids have an antagonistic relationship. So their structure is different, so they don't fit quite as well, and it's very difficult to predict the effects, especially if you're new to it. And my understanding is people have died from these. I always assume that those stories, there's something else we're not hearing about. But I guess my recommendation is just stay away from these. So that's all I got for you about cannabinoids. THC, CBD being the main two. And then just a little bit about the process of how the CBD and THC, specifically the THC, binds with those cannabinoid receptors in your body and gets you high. So hopefully you learned a little bit today. Make sure to go out in the comments and let us know what you want to learn about next. Plan on talking about terpenes very soon. That's another little wrinkle to the picture that we should talk about soon. So thanks for joining us. Do the subscribe thing. We definitely appreciate all the support we can get. And yeah, this is TJ Freeze with Frost Flower. Have a glorious day.